Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayam Udirayet
Tato Jayam Udirayet
Shinvatam Swakatah Krishna
Shanvatam Swakatha Krishna
Punyashravana Kirtana
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Vidyantahasto Hyabhadrani
Hrudayanantostho he abhadrani
Vidhunoti Sahrit Satam
Vidhunoti suhurt satam
Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu
Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavaya
Nityam bhagavata sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavate uttama shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Nayishtiki
Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Krishnaya vasudevaya
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
Devaki nandayanaya cha
Kumaraya
Nandakumaraya
Gopaya Namo Namaha.
Indaya no namah.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So last week, we completed chapter 6. Primarily, in the last chapter, we discussed Narada's story of how he became, Krishna conscious, you can say. So the story primarily is about how Narada, when he was in his previous life, right? It's in a previous age completely. He was the son of a maid servant, and the maid servant was helping in an ashram. There she was serving the Bhagavatas who have visited during the monsoon season, during the Chaturmasa. And Narada also was helping her. So in this way, they were living there, and Narada Muni received blessings of the Bhagavatas, very sincere and humble in his services. And after that, on one day, his mother passed away because when she was milking the cow, Narada was alone. He was almost like an orphan because he has nobody. His father is never there, and his mother passed away. He's only a 2-year-old boy. So he ventured out in search of God. After that, he went to valleys, mountains, he crossed so many places, and then he reached a river where he was very tired, and he drank the water and he sat down for meditation on Lord Vishnu as per the instructions given by the Bhagavatas during their association with him. So after that, very soon he actually comes to see the form of the Lord. Lord appears in his heart, and then soon after, Lord disappears, and Narada wanted to get that form again in his meditation, but the form, looking at the frustration of Narada in search of the absolute truth, Krishna, the form actually speaks, saying that, Narada, in this life, you will not have one more darshan, you already have one darshan. The first darshan was given so that you get the impetus to serve me sincerely all through your life. and saying that Lord instructs him to perform pure devotion service sincerely. Narada was opposed after this instruction, and rest of his life, as long as he lived, he continued to chant the holy name of the Lord, continuously glorifying the Lord. And in this way, he left, he spent rest of his life. And after that lifetime, he basically goes back to Lord. And then he gets this new body as Narada Muni, as we know, who is a Chiranjiva. He is deathless, and he has a spiritual body where he can go from various place to place, from material world to spiritual world to Kailash. He can go anywhere in this body, and everywhere he goes, he spreads the glories of Lord Narayana or Krishna. So that was the story of Narada Muni. So he revealed his story to Vyasadeva, who was his student and our disciple. So after this, so basically the whole story shows the potency of bhakti, process of bhakti. See, Narada was not well educated. He's not doesn't have any resources to worship the Lord in a formal way. He has nothing. He has no association, nothing. But just by his sincerity and devotion service, he was able to win the heart of Lord, and he perfected his life. So this story is basically revealing the potency of bhakti process. And then revealing the story, Narada Muni leaves the place and instructs Vyasadeva to continue to meditate on this. Okay, actually what to author so that the whole world can benefit. So in indirectly, he basically instructed him to compose pure glories of Lord, and that composition has become Bhagavatam. So with that, Narada Muni leaves, the next chapter begins at that context. So this whole discussion, if I just recap one level back, it began with the second level of inquiries by rishis. The first level of inquiries, if you remember, we discussed in the first chapter. There are 6 inquiries which were answered by Sukadeva Goswami. Who is he?
Shaunaka.
Yeah. Shaunika the rishis asked, and represented by Shaunika, and he was answered. Yeah, and then second set of questions were about primarily 3 subjects. One is the origins of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is the story that we continue till now. So it will continue for 10 more verses in this chapter. And then 2 other questions were, so these questions came in the 4th chapter. One is the origins of Srimad Bhagavatam. Second is the story of Parikshit. What inspired Parikshit to actually request Sukadeva Goswami to speak on the subject of Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the story behind that? So the story of Parikshit Maharaj. And then, Sukadeva Goswami, about Sukadeva Goswami, the speaker himself. So these are the 3 inquiries. We briefly discussed already Sukadeva Goswami's characteristics and his purity and all. And now we discussed about the origins of Srimad Bhagavatam. Basically, the story was Narada Muni was despondent despite composing so many Vedic literature.
How was the end game turning to? What do you mean the end game was telling that they were 1,000? That could play a better end game than you could ever play in your damn life. I don't care you think that was right, you wouldn't have played that.
Yeah, sorry. So Narada Muni, sorry, where are we? Nitin Prabhu, what were we discussing? Yeah, the story behind, right? Yeah. So the story behind is Narada Muni came to see his disciple Vyasadeva, because Vyasadeva was frustrated after composing so much literature. Despite doing such contribution to the world, he was not satisfied in the heart. So being the teacher, Narad Muni came to help Vyasadeva to basically understand and his situation and guide him. The despondency was primarily because Narad Muni gave all this literature, but he did not specifically compose glories of Lord exclusively in any single scripture. He glorified Lord, but they are in bits and pieces in various literature. And so he wanted exclusive glorification of Lord and the process of bhakti, and so that was the reason he was not happy, because until somebody takes to pure devotion service, the heart is not satisfied, because heart is thoroughly satisfied only when it performs pure devotion service or ananya bhakti to Supreme Lord. That is the only platform in which it finds true satisfaction. And that did not happen because Vyasadeva hasn't composed an exclusive literature that glorifies the Supreme Lord in its exclusive terms. And so based on the instruction of Narad Muni, now who is about to compose the literature, so that's where we start. That's the end of 6th chapter. Let's begin 7th chapter. So the title was Son of Droṇa Punished, but the chapter begins with further inquiries by Saunaka Rishis. Saunaka Uvacha
Shaunaka Uvacha
Nirgate Narade Shuta
Nirgate Narade Suta
Bhagavan Bhadarayanaha
Bhagavan Badarayana
Sutavanstat Abhipretam
Shutam tad
Abhipretam
abhipretam
Tatah Kim Akarod Vibhu.
Tata
kim akarod vibhu.
Yeah, please, anyone read, please. Nitin Prabhu.
Sri Shaunaka asked, O Sut, the great and transcendental powerful Vasudev heard everything from Sri Narad Muni. So after Narad's departure, what did Vasudev do?
So one is instruction, right? Narad Muni instructed Vyasadeva on his duty to basically compose this Bhagavatam literature. And what is more interesting is what Vyasadeva did after that. So that Shaunaka Rishi wanted to know about. Suta Uvacha
Suta Vacha
Brahmanadyam Saraswatyam
Brahmanatyam Saraswatya
Ashrama Paschime Tate
Ashrama
Pashchime tate
Samya Prasa iti Prokta
Shamya Prasa iti Prokta
Rishinam Satravardhana.
Rishinam Tatravardhana.
Please read.
Sri Suta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation of Samya Prasha, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages.
So there is a place called Samya Prasa. Yeah, Sutta Goswami just mentioning where exactly Vyasadeva sat down to meditate on the Lord. So now, so there is a meditation that Vyasadeva does, and inspired by that meditation, he composes Bhagavatam. So that's what is mentioned here. Yeah, please continue, Mataji.
For spiritual advancement of knowledge, a suitable place and atmosphere are definitely required. The place on the western bank of the Saraswati is especially suitable for this purpose. And there is the ashrama of Vyasadeva at Samya Prasha. Srila Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashrama. An ashram is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. It does not matter whether the place belongs to a householder or a mendicant. The whole Varnashrama system is so designed that each and every status of life is called an ashram. This means that spiritual culture is the common factor for all. The brahmacharis, the grhasthas, the vanprasthas, and the sannyasis all belong to the same mission of life, namely realization of the supreme. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. The difference is a matter of formality on the strength of renunciation. The sannyasis are held in high estimation on the strength of practical renunciation.
So Prabhupada was nicely defining ashrama as a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. Ashrama doesn't mean only a place where celibate monks live. It is also a place where householder lives, but the householder's life is centered around worship of the Supreme Lord. Right? So in the Vedic times, Varnashrama was being followed, 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. People were divided. The whole idea of this division is every stage of life, one can basically, the whole goal was oriented towards spiritual perfection. The life's mission was very well established. So that particular system is very, very harmonic for spiritual culture. Right now, we don't have Varnashram systems, but the idea is what we follow is called Daivi Varnashram. Daivi Varnashram means centered around worship of Lord. Right? We don't have these Varnas and Ashramas exclusive like defined in the Vedic culture, but more or less the same things exist even today. Meaning there are Brahmanas like intellectual classes. There are people who are primarily teachers, right? So teachers or intelligentsia is called Brahmanas. And then there are rulers, like in today's world, it's called politicians. They are Kshatriyas. And then Vaishyas, the businessmen. And then Shudras, who are dependent on somebody else for their living. Practically, 99% of the population is born Shudras in Kali Yuga because everybody characteristically doesn't have these Brahmanical qualities. But no worries, even in Kali Yuga, one can take to bhakti process exclusively and perfect their life. So there is no loss, right? So what is the difference between a sannyasi and a grihastha? Grihastha means, the opposite term for grihastha is grahamedi. One grahamedi means one, one whose focus is still sense gratification. Grihastha means his primary goal is centered around perfecting one's life. Right? Spiritual culture is present at his home. Grihastha and Grahamedi. Grihastha is internally renounced. Externally, he might be engaged in various duties. He might be working and doing whatever is needed. He might be earning money, no problem. But internally, he's renounced. Meaning, internally, whatever he has, he want to use it for the satisfaction of the Lord. Right? And they engage in spiritual culture all his life. In the case of sannyasis and brahmacharis, they are exclusively internally both and externally they are dedicated to serving the Lord. And that's the difference between the two. Yeah. So all are equally important in the spiritual culture. Any questions on this? We discussed about ashramas, on how to practice.
So the question is, does the grahastha, does he needs to take a sannyas anytime in his later part of the life, or he does not need to continue Krishna consciousness?
Not necessary, especially in Kali Yuga. Sannyas is one thing prohibited. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said one can take sannyas only for the spreading of the holy name. He can take it still. If he's inclined, he can do it, but it's not necessary. One can, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed, stay in your current state and preach. Sthane sthitigata tanuan manevi, that verse, right? So he instructed several devotees who wanted to join him and give up their family life. He didn't encourage them. He wanted them to continue in their specific ashram and dedicatedly serve Krishna all their life. So that is the beauty of bhakti. Bhakti is so powerful, you don't need to give up external duties to perfect one's life. For example, if you want to join Shankara Sampradaya, the first step is you have to first renounce everything. You have to go to one of their matas and study Vedanta Sutras to perfect life, because that process requires such kind of renunciation. But bhakti is so potent that even though one is living a grahastha life, married, have children, performing duties in offices or whatever, sincerely performing devotion service can help him advance spiritually and perfect his life. So there is no necessity, but if one is for their service inspired to go out and preach, yes, they are allowed to do that. There is no stopping him, but it's not necessary. In your position, you can do some harikatha and share the knowledge. So there is no necessity to exclusively give up anything.
Thank you, Prabhu.
We hear in the lectures, Prabhu, that if a husband and wife follow the 4 regulative principles, follow the path of devotional service, then they can live as a sannyasi. Means that is also a sannyasi life while doing their all duties, performing their duties, raising their children together. So we do hear that in the lectures, right?
Yeah. So that is perfectly all right. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is called grihastha life.
Right.
After grihastha life, suppose all the children were settled, then some devotees, what they do, they actually go to some like Mayapur or Vrindavan, some holy place, and they can spend their rest of the life together.
Together. Yeah.
Good. Otherwise, sometimes if one of them passes away, the other person just exclusively spends time.
Yes.
So perfectly all right. Yeah, we'll continue. Tasmin swa ashrame vyaso
Tasmin ashrame vyaso
badari sandamandite
Badari Sandamandite
ashinopa upasritya
Asinopa Upa
pranidadhyao manah swayam.
pranidadhyo manasvayam.
Yeah, please continue.
In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification.
In his ashrama, so there were berry trees around. He sat down to meditate. Bhakti yoge namanasi
Bhakti Yogena Manasi
samyak pranahite male
Samyak Pranahite Male
apasyat purusham purnam
Apasyat Purusham Purnam
mayam cha tad apashrayam.
Mayam Chatad Apashyam.
So this is a very important verse where he gets the relation of Supreme Lord. So what was the process he followed? Bhakti yogena manasi. In his mind, he fixed in pure bhakti to the Supreme Lord. Right? Samyak pranahite ka mal amale, with pure heart. Apasya purusham purnam. Where did he focus? On purusham purnam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? And then what? Mayam cha tad apashrayam. What is the relation he got? He saw two things. One is the Supreme Lord and also the Maya together. He saw actually alongside, side by side. Please read.
Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by liking it in devotional services, bhakti yoga, without any hinge of materialism, and thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control.
So he fixed his mind fully on the Supreme Lord. Very soon, he actually, so he's already he's a Mahabhagavat. So as soon as he received instruction, he also received blessing of Narada Muni. And so he sat down. Immediately he gets the realization of the Supreme Lord. He saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy. So one may ask, generally, whenever somebody gets a realization, for example, Narada Muni, when he sat down to meditation, he saw the Supreme Lord, only the Lord. But in case of Narada Muni, he saw two things, not just the Lord, he saw the external energy, the Maya potency of the Lord, side by side. One may wonder why he got the relation of both. Because through the composition of the scripture, Bhagavatam, what Narada Muni is actually helping with is to create a solution for the material problem of the world, for the jivas. So his duty is to compose the literature. So he need to get the relation of both the Supreme Lord as well as Maya, so that he can depict both of them in his literature, right? So the conditioned soul, if he is given only, for example, conditioned soul, we always compare with a person with what disease? Anybody? Jaundice, right? Conditioned soul is compared to a person affected with the disease jaundice. And the solution for jaundice is actually sugarcane. But if suppose somebody gives sugarcane directly to a jaundice person, tastes it, but it looks very, it doesn't taste well at all. It tastes very bitter, in fact. But over a period of time, the disease subsides and he experiences the taste of the sweetness of the sugar candy, right? So similarly, the conditioned soul, if it is given directly the pastimes of Krishna, of 10th canto, they cannot really appreciate because they are conditioned. Their heart is impure. They consider it on the mundane platform. In fact, they commit offense and they won't raise to the, they won't be able to purify, leverage the benefit of conditioned soul. So that's why we have 9 cantos describing the creation of the Supreme Lord. When you understand thoroughly the creation of the Supreme Lord, then you understand the position of the Supreme Lord. Then when you study Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, you will not be confused because now you understand Lord, the Supreme Lord Krishna from his, as the supreme source of everything. Then his pastimes help you purify your heart. You won't misunderstand them. So he gets the relation of both so that he can compose this literature combining both. Yeah. So before actually describing the pastimes of Lord Krishna in 10th canto, Vyasadeva composes creation, subcreation, manvantaras. He talks about hellish planets in 3rd canto in vivid description, like entire creation process, right? Subcreation process, how Manus expand, and all this process was described in vivid detail so that one understands in totality the nature and the position of the Supreme Lord. So when one understands in totality of the Supreme Lord, then he will never be confused when he actually hears the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. He will understand in the context of the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. Yeah, please read.
Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by thinking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth. Personality of Godhead only by process of devotional service, and one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of this absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone enter into the kingdom of God.
So when clearly you can see here, Vyasadeva sat in meditation in Bhakti Yoga, and immediately he realized Bhagavan. That is only possible in Bhakti. Other process do not give that kind of realization. Continue, Prabhuji.
The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from this statement of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to the darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word
Apashrayam.
Apashrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control.
So this verse also mentions Mayam Chatad Apashrayam, means this Maya is actually under the supreme control of the Supreme Lord. And it is under full control. This is important because if the Jiva want to overcome the potency of the Maya, the only way he can do that is by taking shelter of whom? By taking shelter of Lord in Bhakti. Why Bhakti is the only process mentioned?
Because Krishna himself mentions that in Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, what is that? What is the verse? Anybody remembers?
Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya maya vedam tarantite.
Maya.
Yeah.
This external energy of mine is very difficult. Duratya is very difficult to overcome. But for one who takes shelter of me, it's very easy to cross over. So that's what Lord instructs. What does he say? One has to take shelter in bhakti. That is the only way. Yeah. So even here, Lord repeats the same thing. Basically, Maya is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Yaya sammohito jiva
Yaya
sammohito jiva
atmanam trigunatmakam
atmanam trigunatkam
paropi manute nardham
paro api
Paropi
manupare nartham
tatkritam chavipadyate.
tatkritam cha vipadyate.
Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So the jiva is marginal potency, and he basically is trying to be, instead of being in touch with the Supreme Lord, he's trying to dominate the external energy, and so he's getting caught. And because of this, he's entangled and is going through reactions of material miseries. although by nature he is transcendental, but he is Anu, and so he is dominated by the material external energy. Right? So he is going through the reactions of material miseries. So the living being is by constitution transcendental to material encasement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy. Therefore, he thinks himself one of the material products, and due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. Yeah. So one may wonder, how can a pure soul be covered by Maya? Right? We know soul is spiritual. How is it that Maya covers him? How? Anybody want to answer? He's spiritual in nature. Maya is material in nature. Maya is Krishna's external energy. How come Maya cover or overpower him?
Due to forgetfulness of Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, yeah.
Yogamaya, this.
Correct. Because the jiva
Forgets Krishna. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, suppose you are dreaming in your sleep. You are sleeping and you are dreaming, and the whole dream is going in your head, but you can think something like your head is cut off. You can see that, but is your head really cut off? No, it's only in the dream that your head is cut off. So similarly, even though the jiva was spiritual in nature, but because of the association of material energy, he is in a kind of a dreamy state. Even though he is spiritual in nature, but because of that association with material energy, he is in a dreamy state where he is actually, in a way, he was forgetful of his forgetfulness of Krishna makes him feel that he is actually in the clutches of material energy. So he can revive himself from this slumber. That is what bhakti helps with. Right? Somebody was like in a delirious state, and he was constantly reminded. Suppose he forgets everything from the past. Now he was given memories of the past slowly, one by one, by taking to the places where he was living in the past. That way his memory is revived. So similarly, when a jiva performs bhakti, his original consciousness was revived. He would understand at some point what is his real swarupa in the spiritual planet through the practice of bhakti. That is like completely awakening from the dream. Until then, he is in this dreamy land. Right? It's a subtle trap. For example, if you are sleeping, you can really see that you are sleeping, but the orchestration of material energy is a subtle trap. It's very it's difficult to conceive for us until we get out of this, right? But that's how it is working. So why Lord does this, one may ask, right? Prabhupada answers here. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent. Yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. For example, suppose you have a child who is adamant, who is not listening at all. Sometimes you may send him to a teacher, a math teacher. You are trying to teach math at home, but he's not listening. So you send to a teacher who is very strict, right? If he does mischief, he will get punishment, right? He won't listen to you, but he will listen to the teacher, right? So Maya, external energy, is also like that. So, like an affectionate father who wants the transformation of his child to the better, Lord arranges this material energy so that we can be in this place to reform our hearts, right? So we go through miseries in this material world and come to senses and then surrender ourselves. So he arranges actionally through, miserable situations through material energy, right? If you're trying to do sense gratification, he will punish you through the three modes of material nature, right? And internally, he will guide you through Paramatma. He sends you a good guru if you are interested. If you turn to him, he will actually guide you as Paramatma, right? And send you send you to a bona fide guru. So that all happens. So he takes care both internally and externally. Externally, he'll punish you. Internally, he will guide you, right? So in this way, Lord always was well-wishing for us. Yeah. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires the relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the material illusory energy. Right? Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of Bhagavad Gita. And he himself comes, he sends gurus. Why is this arrangement there? All of this so that one will turn to him and go back to him. Wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one may surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. One who surrenders to the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from bewildering ways of illusory energy. Right? This surrendering process is the remedial measure.
So that's what even Krishna is saying in 7:14, right, Prabhuji? Surrender unto me.
Yeah. It's very explicit to Arjuna in so many shlokas. Anardhopasham sakshat bhakti yogam adhokshaje
Bhakti
lokasya janato vidvams chakre sattvat samhitam.
Chakre Sattvat Samhitam.
Yeah, anardho upashamanam sakshat. Upashamanam means mitigation. Anardhas means unwanted things. Right? How bhakti yogam adokshaje. By practicing bhakti to adoksha, the Supreme Lord. Yeah, adoksha means unto the transcendental Supreme Lord. Right? Lokasya ajanato vidvams. Right? Lokasya means everybody, people of this world. Ajanato vidvams, they don't know. Ajanato means don't know, unaware. Supremely Lord. Chakre Sattvata Samhita. Compiled in this literature. Sattvata means in relation to the supreme truth. Okay. Yeah, please read.
The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this. And therefore, the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth.
Yeah, so the material miseries, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. So this is the realization of Vyasadeva. What Vyasadeva is saying, the material miseries can only be mitigated by one process, that is devotion service. Yeah. Bhakti yogam adokshaja. So that's what he mentioned. Right? But unfortunately, mass of the people do not know this. Yeah. And therefore, Vyasadeva composed this literature because this is the main solution. And this is the one thing that Vyasadeva missed in all his compositions. He gave so many literatures, but he missed this exclusive composition, right? A literature that exclusively glorifies and focuses on Bhakti Yoga. Continue. Yeah.
Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Does not depend on the mechanical system.
So if I understand now this point, when I think, oh, I'm chanting every single day, so I must be, I'll be going back to Godhead. Actually, it's not like that. Chanting is only our side of the effort, chanting and hearing. But ultimately, bhakti is a descending process, meaning we need to receive the mercy of the Lord. That is the way one advances spiritually. He does not advance by his own efforts. Right? One will only advance by the reception of mercy of the Supreme Lord.
When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth.
Yeah, so when the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. Right? So the initial chanting and hearing will help us, but it does not. So unless we have the affection for the Lord in our practices, it does not actually attract the causeless mercy of the Lord. While we make some advancement, but real advancement comes when we actually are purified. Right? So it's very important to remind ourselves about this important point that that's why we before we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, we should seek the blessings of Panchatattva. Right? That is one way, because we don't have any taste. We are only following because the Guru has instructed us. But that is not going to help us achieve the highest benefit, highest perfection. Highest perfection is achieved only after one performs, only when one performs devotion service with love, with spontaneity. Right? So one should be very mindful of that. Right? We should not, when we practice devotion service, what is the practical lesson for us? We should strive to keep the focus on the holy name and beg for the mercy of the Lord. And this way, we actually develop the consciousness to actually become receptive to the mercy of the Lord. And when we are ready, Lord will give us mercy. We don't need to imagine or anything. It just comes when we are ready for it.
So, Prabhu, can we add here that we get the mercy of the Lord if we satisfy Guru and Krishna both? So, through Guru Parampara, we get the mercy.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah. By satisfying Guru, one will satisfy the Supreme Lord. Yes. Because Guru, who is the Guru? Guru is actually, in a way, he is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Right? For the conditioned soul, Guru is the manifestation, both Siksha as well as Diksha Gurus. They are actually sent for us, for us, for our upliftment by the Supreme Lord. It's an arrangement by the Supreme Lord. So by pleasing the Guru, one would please the Supreme Lord. Just like in the times when British was ruling the entire world, whenever there is a major event in the country, for example, India, whenever there was a major festival or anything, like say, for example, Puri's Jagannath Yatra, the Viceroy was sent from on behalf of the Queen and King of England, right? Or British. They are like representative of British government. When they come, they were received well and they were treated nicely. By having that, by treating them nicely, by pleasing the Viceroy, one pleases the government of British, for example. So that was the system. Even now, right? For example, sometimes you may call a prime minister for an event and he may not come himself. He will send his representative. And when representative was nicely treated and when he goes back and he informs the president, he will understand how the whole event went. And he will, because he is the trusted agent, he will believe in his words. Right? So similarly, Guru is like that. Guru's position is unique. He is a representative of the Supreme Lord. He should be respected as much as the Supreme Lord. And he should be treated accordingly and served. By pleasing Guru, naturally one will please the Supreme Lord, because Guru is the transparent wire medium to Supreme Lord. Yeah. And he is one who we can reciprocate with in this world. Okay. Yashya, is that clear, Mataji? Divya Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Yashyam vai shruyamanayam Krishne param purushe
Krishna
utpadyate pumsa shokamoha bhayapaha. So if you see all these verses, at least till 12th verse, I think, all these verses are glorification of bhakti process in a way. So these are realizations, the first realizations of who is meditating now? Who is meditating here in these verses? No, I mean the person who is sitting down in meditation. Who is that?
Vyasdeva.
Yasdev.
And what was the motivation for him? What was the motivation for Yahweh to sit down and meditate on the Supreme Lord?
To glorify the Supreme Lord as instructed by Narada Muni.
Yeah, the instruction of Narada Muni, you can say. It was kind of the story inspired by the story of Narada Muni and the instruction of Narada Muni. The instruction of Narada Muni we saw in the previous chapter as well as previous one. That he said like very clearly, Bhakti Yoga is the only process. Right? And I can tell my own story, full evidence, like that he mentioned how he came to Krishna consciousness, right, in the last chapter. And through all these inspirations, Vyasdev sat down in meditation. And very soon he realized Supreme Lord as well as Maya, because his duty is to compose a literature that take the jivas from the Maya's clutches and place them at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So he gets the relation of both so that he can compose literature on both. He begins with, first the Maya aspect, which is basically the creation aspect, and then he goes on to describe the actual, the Supreme Lord himself in 10th and further onwards. Yeah. Krishne Parama Purushe Bhaktir Utpadayate Pumsha Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. So when Bhakti Yasham vai Shruyamanaya. Shruyamanaya means just by hearing. Shruya means hearing actually. Just by hearing the glories of the Krishna Parama Purusha. Krishna is not ordinary Purusha, he is the supreme personality of God. Krishna Parama Purusha Bhaktir Utpadayate Pumsa. Just by hearing about the Supreme Lord, one develops bhakti. Utpadayate means generates. It's already there. It's just revived. Right? And what is the result of such bhakti that is generated in the heart of the conditioned jiva? Shoka moha bhayapaha. Means immediately his shoka means misery, moha means illusion. Both in bhaya means fear. All these three things will be gone. Apaha means extinguishing. Please read anyone.
Simply by giving oral reception to the Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness.
This is a glorification of Bhagavatam specifically. Right? The feeling for loving devotion service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Immediately takes away all these three things. And this is a byproduct. This is not the main result of bhakti. What is the main result of bhakti? What is the primary result of bhakti?
Relieved from the clutches of the Maya.
No, that is a byproduct.
The knowledge and renunciation, right?
Knowledge and renunciation is a byproduct. Yes.
Love of
Bhakti
Godhead.
itself.
Love of Godhead.
Yes, love of God. Yeah. The full perfection is achieving unconditional love for God. It means you must miss Lord. Every day you must miss Lord. That is when you love somebody and you are not seeing that person, what happens? You feel separation from him. Right? You love your mother and you want to call her every day or every week because you feel separation from her. So right now we don't have that. That is a clear indication that our hearts are not pure. For example, if you have, I don't have, for example, you may have, but that is the truth, right? So the feeling for loving devotion service will be erased just by hearing the literature of this Bhagavatam literature, because it will give you an idea of the qualities of the Supreme Lord. When you, for example, Rukmini, just by hearing, not even seeing Krishna, fell in love with the Supreme Lord Krishna, just by hearing his pastimes, right? And his glories and how he protected his devotees, and all of that, she fell in love. So similarly, by studying Bhagavatam, one develops natural love for the Supreme Lord, and as a side benefit, his fear, lamentation, and illusion will be gone. Right? If you practice any other method, for example, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Karma Yoga, you practice, these things will be eliminated even through that process. The achieving relief from the encasement of the material, the relief from the influence of the three modes of material nature is bringing one to neutral state. But neutral state is not perfect state, right? You realize you're not this body, you're Atman, and you work on the platform. That is a state in which one is relieved from the influence of the modes of material nature. At which point his lamentation, illusion, and fear are gone. But that is not considered the highest state, because the jiva is actually a servant of the Supreme Lord. He can be truly happy only in performing pure devotion service. And so until that is achieved, that perfect state is achieved, he cannot be truly happy. Right? So for example, if suppose one is deceased, suppose somebody gets deceased, there are two levels of improvement. The first is just the relief from the disease. Right? Suppose somebody has like he had a high fever for 3 days. He took the medicine, he took the diet, required diet. After say 1 week, his fever is gone. His fever is gone doesn't mean that he can do what he was doing before, right? He's still very weak. So this taking medicine to relieve oneself is coming to a neutral state. He's not diseased anymore. To get relief from the disease, right? One needs to take medicine. That medicine is the process of yoga. It can be Jnana yoga, it can be Bhakti yoga, it can be Ashtanga yoga. Any of these processes can give you that relief from the disease. But getting relief from the disease is not sufficient. One wants to go to his work and workplace and work, right? That is his ultimate goal. So that requires one to retain his energy. So that is like bhakti. Bhakti will give you establish your true position in the spiritual world, right? So Jnana yoga, Ashtanga yoga will not give that. They will only relieve you from the 3 modes of material nature. Is that clear? Any questions on this? Because this is an important lesson to understand.
It is clear, Prabhu.
Yeah.
In Bhakti Yoga, we need to practice meditation and chanting a lot, right? To reach the that purity in our hearts, Guruji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. In Bhakti Yoga, yeah, we practice Navavidha Bhakti. We don't sit down and meditate or do anything. We primarily do chanting of the holy name. That is the prescribed method for this is. Vandanam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam, all these other processes are also there. You can pray to the Lord, worship the Lord, you can serve the Lord. We practice primarily Bhakti Yoga, in which you engage all your senses in the worship of, in pleasing the Supreme Lord. Right? Manasa, Vacha, Karma, by your actions, by your mind, by your intelligence. So, by your body, sorry. By your mind, by your body, and by your mind, body, and intelligence. Yeah. So, engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. What is that, Mataji?
I thought I just wanted to say body, mind, and words.
Yeah, words and work, you can say. Yeah. Just 1 second. Hare Krishna, yes.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Please read.
So the importance of hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from from the 3 material pangs.
So the power of Bhagavatam is such that if you just keep hearing every single day, you will be relieved. That is the potency of Bhagavatam. That's why I'm asking everybody to, read along with me all these slokas. When you read, you derive the benefit of this purification. Right? So every time you get an opportunity in this class or somewhere else, or every day on a daily basis, always read these Sanskrit verses. This reading has so much purificatory potency. You don't need to sit on meditation or practice any Jnana yoga or anything. Just by hearing and reading, we are heard every minute you are reading, you are getting your heart purified. Yes, you are making, you are increasing your spiritual balance. That's how you should see. Every minute you spend in this class, you are purifying your heart. So you are adding on value to your life, real value. Please read, Prabhuji.
So the ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality. The love is a word which is often used in a relation between a man and a woman. And love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relationship between Lord Krishna and the living entities.
Yeah. So love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate relation between Lord Krishna and living entities. Why? Why is it stated like that?
So that's the actual source of love between the living entity and the Lord. Even though we use love in the material world, but the real source of love is actually coming between the soul and the the Lord, right?
Correct. Yeah, because Jiva Krishna Nityadas. Jiva is a eternal servant of the Lord. Right? When somebody is a servant of somebody else, the primary happiness of the servant is in serving the Lord. That is his natural state. Correct? Any servant is happy when he is happily serving his master. So the relation between Jiva and Jiva is also centered with the Supreme Lord. But if he doesn't realize, that's why in the association of devotee, you feel so much happy, because together, when we together serve Lord, there is more spiritual bliss derived. Right? So, individually, there is nothing like the love can be centered around the Supreme Lord, but it cannot be between the two. That becomes more like sense gratification. But when it is centered around Krishna, that becomes true love. And when a family, for example, is centered around Krishna, the family's affection and love will grow between them. That is true love, because it's centered around Krishna. When Krishna is taken out of equation, there cannot be true love. Because why? There is no relation between two souls, actually. And now they're covered by false ego. There is going to be a flat clash of false egos. Because
Lust, right?
yeah, it's like, yeah, there is never, yeah. I mean, they can be related in service to Lord, but there is no other way they can relate to each other. There is always, there is always some mismatch. There can never, because of false ego, there is always, there cannot be true love without centering around Krishna.
And it's temporary. Even if it is there, it's temporary.
It's temporary for this one lifetime. Yes, that's true.
So they say the family that stays together, prays together, stays together.
Because the center is Krishna. Krishna is like magnet, and everybody is like, the small sand dust, the manganese dust. And when somebody attaches to Krishna, they can be together. But when they go away from each other, they're like ripples in the ocean. They separated out. That's why, because that culture was there in India, you never heard in the 50 years back, there is hardly anybody heard about divorce, because there is always a different center for them, at home. Either, demigod or God, somebody is there. So one was tolerating each other, keeping God at the center. So naturally, there was never a fight. But now, because when there is no God, what happens? The false ego grows for the conditioned soul, and naturally there is clash of false ego. Even the richest people cannot stay together, unfortunately, because of clash of false ego. Right? So love can only exist between Lord and Jiva. That is the only truth. To a small extent, the love between a mother and child is a small semblance to that. Yeah. But otherwise, there is no true love in this world. Please read this one thing, Prabhuji.
Yeah, the conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. These are practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing to the readings of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah. So we can see from our own experience how by reading Bhagavatam, we can really see the difference in our life. Right? We are not, there is protection of Krishna. Although our karma will still come, but still we can see the difference in our own life. And for those people who go out of bhakti process, they can actually go through a lot of miseries. I've seen even those examples in practical life. Okay, so I think 3:40, I have to leave for some place now. Thank you all very much for joining us today. So we are right now we are discussing after Narada Muni left the ashrama of Vyasadeva, what happened. Narada Muni sat down in meditation on the Supreme Lord. He had relation of the Supreme Lord as well as his Maya potency. And now there is further glorification of the literature that he is about to compose, right? The potency of bhakti and efficacy of bhakti to relieve the miseries, as well as give the love of God. All of that is discussed. We'll continue a little more. Next 4 verses are like that. We'll cover next week. Today is a little short, and we'll end here. Thank you all very much for joining in this Bhagavatam study. We'll all be very much blessed by studying Bhagavatam like this sincerely. Okay, we'll end the class here.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.